Fallout 76. Now, we've not talked about Fallout 76 for a little minute, but as we're approaching April 7th and the long-awaited Wastelanders update, the game is starting to enter the conversation again, and in a new interview with GameIndustry.biz, Wastelanders designer Ferret Baudoin has talked about Fallout 76's original design, the lack of NPCs in it, and in doing so, has sort of highlighted that maybe Bethesda doesn't understand Fallout, like the series that Bethesda has and is charged with making games for. Bethesda might not understand Fallout because Bethesda doesn't seem to know, or at least didn't seem to know, that Fallout fans like a bit of Fallout in their Fallout. And with Wastelanders, Bethesda has promised, and this is from the interview, they have promised that Fallout 76 is getting some Fallout in the Fallout, so that Fallout fans can enjoy Fallout. With this interview, the designer is clearly trying to explain why the Wastelanders update will be good, and of course, you want to do that if you're Bethesda. You want to tell people that an update is coming, and the game you released in 2018 will finally, in April of 2020, be the kind of game that people would like. But the interview details Bethesda's surprise at some of the responses to Fallout 76's missing features, and discusses what Bethesda's focus was. And when you look at it, you think, wow, they really don't know what they're doing. There was quite a lot that worked at launch, says the designer, whose name I'm going to limit saying just in case I pronounced it wrong. I did look it up, but you know. If you're a person who liked exploration, for example, from our traditional games, it was possibly one of the best worlds to explore that we've ever had. It was just huge, full of stories and stuff like that. But there was a large portion of our audience that wanted people. They wanted an emotional connection, and if you know everyone is dead and you come across a holotape from someone, it loses that hope that you might meet that person and help them out. Yes. No shit. I think what we learned from launch was that core combat was fun, it was great to explore, there was a lot to do, but what we needed for a lot of our audience was to bring the humanity back. Now, one of the things that did keep Fallout 76 relevant outside of its endless list of dumpster fires was the fact that players were making their own fun, a bit like Sea of Thieves. And I know myself at the time, I thought that's what Bethesda had done. They decided not to have NPCs because they assumed that players would fill in the role of the fun, which a lot of players did, whether they were setting up creepy cults or getting into class warfare or running around dressed like Father Christmas. Players were being fun for each other. They were essentially being each other's NPCs, and that was an accident. It wasn't, as I assumed, a deliberate and cynical idea of Bethesda's to create a world where players would have to produce their own content. No, according to this interview, Fallout 76 was only really focused on players killing each other, and Bethesda was shocked that Fallout players might want to do something other than kill each other. You know, it's that series where famously there have been pacifist runs and a lot of non-violent ways to solve situations. Bethesda thought that Fallout's fanbase wouldn't be interested in that kind of thing. So all of the fun stuff we've heard about players producing content for each other, being characters for each other, yeah, Bethesda hadn't planned on any of that and were surprised by it. The funny thing is that in some respects, the players added the most human things of all. The role-playing, for example, or some of the stories you hear about people dressed up as Santa Claus giving out gifts. That was something we didn't anticipate. We had all these plans for PvP, and actually we have the least PvP audience ever. We had whole plans for ways to let players murder each other, and they just wouldn't do it. We have a weird, wonderful audience that would rather help each other out, even when they have the other options. No shit. shit. So that was Bethesda's vision for Fallout 76, a wasteland full of nothing but death and destruction. It's no wonder that in the lead up to the game, they promoted the nukes so heavily, which some fans thought was A, in a bit of bad taste, and B, ran counter to the series' message overall. Well, that last point is hardly surprising, considering Bethesda apparently doesn't know what Fallout is, means, or stands for, or anything. I mean, if this was Doom, if Bethesda had put out Doom 76 and players were helping each other out and not killing things, okay, I can understand the surprise. At the time, there was no clear analogue to what we were making, says Baudoin. Really? I mean, the Fallout games exist. But anyway, he says, so it was very tricky because you would make arguments as to what you think the game should be, but there was no clear right decision. As soon as we saw what people were saying, there was a real fire in the belly to say, no, we can address this. If we solve these problems, there's a whole package here that is very enticing to people, and we just need to provide that extra step. It's far more of a Bethesda experience than we were at launch. What, fucking broken? I think Wastelanders looks a lot more like a traditional Fallout game, he continued. The tagline in my head a lot of the time is, Fallout 76 is Fallout with friends. I think now we've added more of the Fallout into it. The things you expected from Fallout 3, Fallout 4 are now in there. I think we're more properly delivering on that expectation that some people had. Well, it's good to know that Fallout is being put into Fallout 76. That's always encouraging when a game is going to be like the game that the game is. But as I said, I think it's telling that Bethesda had the mentality it had before this Wastelanders update was conceived. Throughout Fallout 76's entire marketing, guys like Todd Howard were telling us that Fallout 76 is an authentic Fallout experience that happens to be online, and it wasn't. But apparently Bethesda thought it was. All because the combat was at least the same. I mean, sort of the same. The online nature meant the VAT system was busted and awful, but Fallout 76 was about wandering around this incredibly dead, pointless, bereft of interest world and shooting stuff. And that's apparently all Bethesda thinks Fallout is. Their focus was on players killing each other, which is cynical, isn't it? What a dim view of humanity Bethesda has. But the fact is, if players want to murder each other online, there are hundreds and thousands of games to do that in. If you want Fallout's world, you can only do that in Fallout, and that is what Bethesda failed to provide in 76. Now, when Wastelanders comes out, I will give it a go. I think curiosity will compel me to see exactly how much Fallout they put in Fallout, but at least now we know where Bethesda's priorities are and what it thinks of its own franchises. And if Bethesda is this capable of misreading not only its own franchise, but that franchise's audience, it's no wonder Fallout 76 was the way it was, and it's no wonder that Bethesda as a company has just, gone off the fucking rails a bit. Yeah, they said that Elder Scrolls Blades was a traditional Elder Scrolls experience as well, and it was full of wait times and loot boxes and shit. So I'm starting to think that Bethesda might not know what the fuck it's talking about. Ever.
Oh, banana.